Starbirth Horror Anthology 1. The Mannequin. The old antique shop on the corner was my favorite haunt, a dusty labyrinth of forgotten treasures. Its crown jewel was a life-sized wax mannequin from the 1920s, a flapper girl with unsettlingly realistic glass eyes and a faint knowing smile. The owner, a stooped man named Elias, called her Lillian. He'd often joke that he had to lock the front door at night because she wandered. I always laughed it off as a clever sales gimmick to add to her mystique. Last night I was walking home late, the streetlights casting long dancing shadows, when I noticed the shop's lights were still on. Curiosity piqued, I peered through the large glass window. Elias was there, methodically sweeping the worn floorboards. But Lillian's pedestal was empty. My eyes scanned the cluttered shop until I found her, standing by the back wall, facing the corner, like a scolded child. As I watched, Elias finished sweeping, leaned the broom against a bookshelf, and sighed, a weary sound even through the glass. He walked over to the mannequin. "All right, Lillian, that's enough sulking for one night," he said, his voice a muffled murmur. He gently took her stiff wax arm. "Come on, back to your spot. We have customers tomorrow." He then led the mannequin with a slow, dragging gait that was unnervingly not his own, back to the pedestal. He carefully arranged her arms and tilted her head back into its usual pose. Before he turned out the lights, he leaned in close to her ear and whispered, his words chillingly clear in the silent night. "Don't make me get the chains again. You know what happens when you make me get the chains?" 2. The procedure. It was a revolutionary new dental procedure, advertised in glossy magazines and celebrity endorsements. A permanent pearlescent coating called osteoshell that would make my teeth invincible to decay and stains. The dentist, Dr. Albright, had a pristine, minimalist office, and a smile that seemed too bright to be real. "You'll feel a slight pressure, perhaps a bit of cold, that's all," he promised, his voice smooth as silk as the anesthetic took hold, and the world faded to black. I woke up groggy, my jaw throbbing with a deep, resonant ache. Albright was beaming over me. "A complete success," he declared, handing me a mirror. My teeth were perfect, almost glowing with an inner light. For the first few days I was ecstatic, but the pressure in my jaw never left. It was a constant, deep-seated ache that ibuprofen couldn't touch. Then I noticed the texture was wrong. My teeth didn't feel like hard enamel anymore. They felt strangely fibrous, almost like horn. This morning I was flossing when I felt a snag. I pulled, and a tiny thread-like filament came loose, coiling on my fingertip. It was pale and wiry, like a bristle from a stiff brush. I looked in the mirror, heart hammering, and pulled my lip up high. At the base of my gums, where tooth met flesh, a fine white fur had begun to sprout. A downy growth that was slowly, inexorably colonizing my mouth. I remembered the odd clicking sound Dr. Albright's own teeth made when he spoke. They weren't coated. They were overgrown. And I finally understood the procedure wasn't a coating. It was a seeding. 3. The trench. We were a deep-sea survey team, charting the abyssal plains of the Mariana Trench in a submersible built to withstand pressures that could pulverize steel. The mission was routine, a slow crawl through eternal darkness, until we picked up an anomaly. On the sonar, it looked like architecture, a colossal, non-Euclidean structure rising from the seabed, its spires and buttresses twisting at angles that made my head hurt just looking at the readout. It was bigger than any city on Earth. Command, their voices crackling with a mix of disbelief and excitement, ordered us to approach. As we got closer, the water grew unnaturally still and cold. No fish, no geothermal vents, not even the usual flurry of marine snow. Just the silent cyclopean city, absorbing our sonar pings as if it were drinking the sound. Our external cameras then picked up movement. It was a light, a single soft, bioluminescent glow, pulsing slowly in the heart of the abyss. It was mesmerizing, a soft blue-green that promised peace. All three of us stared at the monitor, our duties forgotten, unable to look away. "What is that?" our pilot Jensen whispered in awe. The light pulsed again, brighter this time, and a voice flooded our comms. It wasn't sound, it was a thought, pushed directly into our minds. Ancient, vast, and utterly indifferent to our existence. It said with the force of a tectonic plate shifting, "Hush, you'll wake the others." Outside our viewport, in the crushing eternal darkness, where nothing should live, 1,000 more lights began to glow, stretching into the infinite black. We weren't the explorers. We were the alarm clock. 4. The neighbor. My neighbor, Mr. Harrison, lives alone in the house next door. He's a quiet, gentle man, the kind who always offers a sad smile and a wave. Last Tuesday, I saw him struggling with his overflowing recycling bins, so I went over to help. "Oh, thank you, my dear," he'd said, his voice papery and thin. "My wife usually handles this, but she's feeling a bit under the weather today. The thing is, Mr. Harrison's wife, Eleanor, died 10 years ago. I was there for the funeral. I thought it was just a sad, lonely slip of the tongue. But I've been watching. Through his kitchen window, I see him setting the table for 2 every evening. I see him talking to the empty chair across from him, pausing as if listening to a reply, sometimes even laughing. Last night was the worst. I was taking my own trash out when I saw him dancing in his living room, the lights low. He was holding his arms out, as if embracing a partner, twirling and swaying with an invisible companion to music only he could hear. A look of pure, unadulterated bliss was on his face. Then he stopped mid-twirl and faced my window, His joyful expression evaporated, replaced by a sudden unnerving blankness. He looked directly at me, his eyes locking onto mine from across the manicured lawn. He slowly mouthed the words, "She says you've been watching us." Behind him, for just a second, I could see a woman's faint, shimmering outline in the reflection on the dark glass of his television screen. She was pale and gaunt, and she was waving at me with long, skeletal fingers. 5. The harvest. When my family moved to the idyllic, isolated village of Oakhaven, the locals were almost too welcoming. They told us we'd arrive just in time for the annual harvest scavenge, a fun tradition, they said, where the children searched the surrounding woods for specially painted gourds. On the day of the festival, the whole town gathered in the central square, a picture of rustic charm. The elder, a woman with eyes as gray as a winter sky, handed each child a small wicker basket and sent them running into the woods with joyful shouts. It was all so charming, so perfectly quaint. But as the hours passed, my unease grew into a cold knot in my stomach. Some children came back empty-handed and were met with tight-lipped, disappointed frowns from their parents. A few returned with one or two of the strange crimson-painted gourds, earning relieved, if not happy, smiles. Then one boy, Thomas, came back, his basket overflowing with the red gourds. The town erupted in cheers. They lifted him onto their shoulders, parading him around the square and calling him the harvester. "What does he win?" I asked a woman beside me, trying to share in the festive spirit. She gave me a cold, pitying look that made my skin crawl. "He doesn't win anything," she said, her voice low as she nodded towards the empty-handed, crying children. They were being quietly led away from the crowd by grim-faced adults, towards the old tithe barn on the edge of the village. "He chooses who we don't need to feed through the winter." 6. The sound. It started 3 weeks ago. A low, rhythmic, scraping sound from inside the walls of my new apartment. It only happened at night, always starting at precisely 3:03 a.m. It would last for exactly 1 minute, a grating metallic sound like a knife being dragged along stone, and then it would stop. I called an exterminator, convinced it was some monstrous rat. He found nothing. I called a plumber, thinking it was the pipes. He found nothing. The building was old, they said. It just made noises. But I knew it was more than that. I started recording it on my phone. On the playback, my microphone picked up something my ears couldn't. A faint, sibilant whisper buried beneath the scraping. A dry, insect-like voice, repeating the same word over and over. My name. I'm losing my mind. Sleep is a distant memory. I just sit up every night, staring at the wall, waiting for it, dreading it. Tonight, I decided to fight back. When the scraping started, I grabbed a hammer from my toolbox and smashed it into the drywall. The sound stopped instantly. A profound silence fell over the room. I tore away the plaster and insulation in a frenzy, desperate to find the source. There were no pipes, no wires, nothing. Just the empty space between the studs. And scratched deeply into the raw, exposed wood of the neighboring apartment's wall were hundreds upon hundreds of tally marks, and beneath them a single freshly carved sentence that looked like it had been gouged out with a fingernail. You weren't supposed to hear me. 7. The final entry. Log date, the 22nd of July, 2025. Time 23:40. The descent into the abandoned Cold War bunker was successful. Power is out, as expected, so we're on battery packs. Air quality is surprisingly stable, though it has a strange metallic taste. We've located the main control room, but the primary blast door at the far end is sealed shut. It's not on any of the declassified schematics we have. It's a perfect, seamless slab of what looks like cast iron, marked only with a single stenciled word in faded red paint. Vessel. We've been trying to pry it open for hours. There's no lock, no handle, not even a visible seam. It's completely solid. About 30 minutes ago, a rhythmic banging started from the other side. It's slow, methodical. One heavy, resonant bang every 30 seconds. We all thought it was another urban explorer, trapped. We shouted, banged back, but got no reply. The sound just continued, unwavering in its rhythm. Mark, our engineer, is looking at the door with a strange, horrified expression. He says it's not a banging sound. He says it's a heartbeat. He's pressed his ear against the cold metal, and he swears it's getting faster. The rest of us can't hear a change, but he's starting to panic, backing away from the door. He's right. I just saw it. The entire steel door just flexed outward, a subtle but undeniable bulge. It's breathing. Oh God, it's breathing. That's not a door, it's a lid, and we just woke up whatever is inside. Thanks for watching. If you got this far, leave a comment, like if you liked it, and follow for more.